Welcome back. This week we're going to do attempt number 2 on this one. I got halfway through the back half on the last fly and realized that I didn't turn on the microphone. So better that than the whole way through it and have to do the whole thing over again. But we're going to do a Rainbow Riffle special with the dubbing brush today. This is going to be in white, obviously, because this is what I'm tying for the bins and everything. Feeling we got 2 dozen of these coming. So we're going to do this one in white today. And to get started on this, we'll get this one out of the vise. It's going to be an MFC 7050 size 4 for the back hook. The front's going to be a 2. Gel spun 100 as always for the streamers. And I'm just going to get this thread started here real quick, and then I'm going to flip over, well, not flip over, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. I had 2 things on my mind at once there. Zoom in a little bit and explain these brushes. There's not a whole lot to explain on them because I'm not actually going through the brush building process. But here's what we have. This is what we're working with. These are the ones that I built. You can see all the Shaggy dub and everything coming off of this. You get about 3 to 4 complete flies off of one brush. These ones don't take too awful long to put together. All it is just, this is one that I'm working with now. All this is just some Senyo Shaggy dub and some Hare's ice dub. Gives a nice little picked out body. You'll see it when we start spinning this up, and it saves just an absolute ton of time as opposed to going through and doing the dubbing loop for each one and prepping all of that and having all the material to the side here. So this way you just pick the brush up and you go. So speaking of going, we're going to. Let me get some Marabou out of here. This is just going to be a dual Marabou tail with some flash. And wet this, and we're going to go the length of the hook slightly longer. If anything, don't shorten up your tails on this, but don't go getting too awful long either, because it'll just wind up, the tail will wind up coming around and fouling up with everything. So I'm just going to take this on my side. I'm going to build a little bulk for the body, a little bit of extra taper. Then I'm going to go with some flash here. This is silver holographic Flashabou. I'm going to get this tied in 4 on my side, and then I'm going to flip this over and go 4 on the camera side, leaving it just slightly shorter than the overall length of my tail. Flip this around. There we go. A little bit of internal flash. Now I'm going to take a second plume. Same thing, wet the Marabou. Makes it a little bit easier to work with. And then I'm going to set this right over top, the same length as the bottom stack that I put on. We'll get that tied in. And then I'm going to take the brush, tie this in before I advance to the front. And I'm just going to open loop this just to create a little bit more bulk. Take a couple of wraps through here, get a couple good secure wraps. And then half hitch, get this in the cradle, and we're going to start working the body on this one. So as you'll see on this, as we start rotating, we're going to have that nice picked out body with this Shaggy dub throughout the entirety. And you can change these up however you want when you're building the brushes. If you want them a little more sparse, by all means go ahead. I like them with a little bit more motion to them, with a little bit more a little bit more of the Shaggy dub in it. Now every 3 to 4 wraps, excuse me, like you're seeing me do, I'm just taking this and peeling these legs back. Just peeling them back, that way I'm not trapping them with my wraps for the rest of the body. We'll get that right up to the front, trim that off, and there you can see we have a nice picked out body on this, and this is just natural movement that's going to come along with this fly. Must have got too much Marabou or something. Got a little itch in my throat. So now I'm just going to clean this up. I'm going to give myself about 1/4 of an inch to work with here. This is what I'm going to use to build the overwings. And if any of these are too long, some of them will get filed up on a hook or two. If any of these are too long, just go ahead through and trim those up. Now what I'm going to do is take and make my overwings. And all I'm going to do on this one, that's going to be a good one for the front right there. We'll set that off to the side. All I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take, this is just regular woolly bugger Marabou, and I'm going to pick this stuff off from the sides, and this is what I'm going to use for the bulk on my overwings. For the back half, I don't get too concerned about how much bulk I have. I want them to be a little on the sparse side actually, and the only thing that I really do when I measure this out is make sure that this woolly bugger Marabou comes into the tail of the fly. That's the only thing that I really want. And like I said, if they're a little on the sparse side, I'm good with that. I want the natural taper moving forward, so when I do the front ones I can really get some bulk in there and have the taper that I'm after for this. So I'm just going to kind of preen that stuff back. Same thing, I still have my roughly 1/4 of an inch that I'm working with for a base here. Just a thread base, no other material on that. I'm going to take some, this is ice wing fiber, this is in polar wing. I'll show you the package here in a second so you can get a look at it. One thing that you don't want to do on this is go and get a lot of it in your mouth, is to go too bulky on this. A little bit really makes a big difference as far as the flash goes in this. And if you go getting too much because it's non-compressible, you're going to build a big bulky section on the head of this fly, and it'll just be, it'll be a lot to work with. It really will. Alright, back to the other overwing here. Do the same thing on the top portion that I did on the bottom. Trim this out, and then like I said, just make sure that your overwing is going back to the start or just slightly past the start of your Marabou tail. So there you can see we have nice bulky under and overwing there, but it's not too much to where it's going to overtake our front. So now I'll just get a quick whip finish on this. Actually, I'm going to touch it with a little bit of glue. I didn't like how that turned out. It's a bad knot. Not the cleanest. Alright, now we'll just take our connection wire. We'll run this through. Get it somewhat even. Try not to glue your finger to the hook. And then take your 2 beads. These are just 2 regular craft store beads. Usually stick with the red. I don't know, every once in a while I'll mix it up, but not too often. Alright, now we're going to go to the size 2 for the front hook. Just going to get a little thread base down here. We'll run this all the way back to the barb of the hook. Just get a little bit more thread. There we go, nice and clean. Now you notice I'm leaving this one section right here to where I don't have any material. That's where I'm going to start the head of this fly with the laser dub. So now what I'm going to do is take my back section, we'll get this connected. Big thing is always on this is make sure that your wire is parallel to one another. You don't want them crossing over, it'll wind up causing trouble later on. Space this out. I'm going to have a little bit shorter than the overall bead length for my connection on the back side. So take the 2 beads, whatever that length is, and have it just slightly shorter. You go getting too long, and once again it'll wind up whipping around and fouling on itself. It seems to be that this is a pretty good distance for this pattern. Now I'm just going to double over my wire, give me a little bit extra security. Same thing, I got a little bit short on that end. Double that wire over. And we'll call that good. Things looking pretty secure right there. Everything's nice and clean. Got a nice connection here. Now we're going to build the skirt of this fly. And for that, I'm just going to take 2 plumes of Marabou and I'm going to run it down the side. On a downward angle. So I'm going back into the over and underwing on this. And you'll see it better when I flip, or when I do this other side here. I'll explain the length a little bit better. Give me one more of these here. Alright. So now I'm going to measure this up to where my other one sits. And you can see how far I'm coming back into this. Probably a third of the way into the overwing itself. And this is just going to create a nice clean connection. It's going to be a nice skirt for this pattern. Now I'm going to take this up. Leaving off right where I left off with my thread. I still have the bare hook right there. That's just a good reference point. And then I'm going to take one more section of this woolly bugger Marabou. If I can get this to cooperate. There we go. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to set this right over the top. And it's going to blend in to that top overwing. Phone was ringing there. I'll have to get that when I'm done filming. Alright, so there we go. Now we're back to our brush. Try and get a good section here. I had one that got pretty sparse there. And then I just tie this in and I'm going to work this to the front just like the last one. Take this 2 to 3 wraps, give it a stretch, and then just peel these fibers back. 2 to 3, peel them back. I'm going to get one more in there. That'll do. Now I can take and trim this, get that out of my way, and then get all of this shaggy dub picked out real nice. Like I said, on the back hook, if you find any that are a little bit too long and you want to go ahead and trim them, by all means, go ahead and get those out of the way. And then we're going to go back to the Marabou overwings. Now I want to find a good piece. I have one good one right there. I'm going to use a full stem on this. You just get a little bit more bulk. And like I said, I want a little bit more bulk in that front section than I do on the back. So I'm going to take this now, and I'm only going to do the underwing at this point. Same thing, I'm going back to the 1/3 point probably of the skirt. I'm just going to tie this one in, get it secured. And now, because I know I'm not putting any more material on as far as bulk goes, I can go ahead and cover up that one section on the hook to where I had my reference point. Now, same thing, we're going to go back to the polar wing. Just a small amount here, double that up, and then some of this stuff's gonna, some of your bulk's gonna wind up coming out just because it's uneven in the package. It's your job to even it up and make it to the thickness that you want. So same thing, I'll get this tied in on my side, flip it over to the camera side, and right there we go. Now this is sitting more on the top third of the hook, this ice wing. I'm going to take a piece of lateral scale, and this stuff shows up so well when you get a little bit of, when you get a brighter day. I can't find a good piece here. This stuff, one little piece of this going down both sides, and it just absolutely lights up in the water. Alright. Can't get at it here. There we go. Alright. So now I'm just going to lay this down, and I'm going to bring this back to where my tail gets tied in on the back hook. There we go. And then I'm going to work this over again on the opposite side. I'm going to stand the vise up here for a second so I can see it, but once I get this trimmed, you'll be able to see a good visual on for a reference on the length here. There we go, right where the tail's starting. Just go ahead and get a trim on that, and you can see that lateral scale. I'll move it back around here so hopefully it catches a good reflection. There you can see it, I think. I don't have my glasses on, but right here is about the distance where we're going to be ending this one. So now we have the polar wing, we've got the lateral scale in there. We're going to go with our overwing to finish this body section off, so to speak. And then we're going to build the head with the laser dub. Same thing, back to the 1/3 point with your overwing. So 1/3 back the skirt. There we go, you can see that nice bulk that we're getting out of this. And this is where I really like to use that Woolly Bugger Marabou. It's just webbier. It fills the fly out a lot better, and I just like the way that it looks as opposed to the straight blood quill. Now I'll still use the blood quill for the tail and in the bottom section of the skirt, but like I said, this Woolly Bugger Marabou just gives a little bit more bulk, and I really like the way that it fills the fly out. Alright, next up we're going to build the head on this. This is just straight white Senyo's laser dub. Nothing really new on this portion of the fly. The only thing really new on this fly is the brush, but when you're tying multiples of it, it cuts down so much time. It really does. Even doing this video here, it really cuts the time down because I'm not having to build the dubbing loop or anything like that, and I can knock out 24 of these flies in an afternoon after work. So before, I'd be lucky to get a dozen pre-brush. So now on 2, I'm just going to advance my way forward now, right up, just right behind the eye. And what this is going to wind up doing is creating a little space between the 2 tie-in points for the laser dub, and this little bit of space is going to work out perfect because that's where we're going to glue the eye. Take that, cup that, go right underneath, pull tight, and then same thing, we're going to do one more stack on the top here. Make sure that when you're doing this, that you're not just taking this stuff right out of the package and throwing it on because it's uneven. You'll wind up getting too much bulk, and then it won't, excuse me again, it'll wind up not getting secured to the hook, and it'll have a tendency to want to fall out on you. So make sure that you even that out really nice and get rid of some of the fibers that are in there that are just creating bulk and they're not going to be affixed to the hook. Alright, so there's the head on this. Last thing I'm going to do before we put the eyes on is I'm just going to clean this stuff up. I'm going to pull this head, the laser dub, I'm going to pull this stuff down, just kind of brush this to where it's straight up and down instead of laying back like that. And then I'm just going to take a quick trim just to give me a shape. There's one. Here comes one of the pups. Sounds like the black dog. Yep. Alright, so there we go. We have just the overall shape of the head that we're after. And this will all wind up kind of just peeling back a little bit. And it's going to give that nice taper, that nice bullet looking head to the fly. Now, I realize this is white, and I just put some red on this one. There's some blood. I stuck myself. Of course, it's on a white fly. But like I was saying before, and I realized this is on white, so it's kind of tough to see. But those two different sections that we use to tie in the laser dub creates that nice open spot to where there's no material, and it's just a perfect spot for the glue, and then you go right on top of it with the eyes and you're good to go. So I'm just going to take some MFC. These are red 6mm 3D eyes. If I can, there we go. There we go. There's the red 3D 6mm, and man. Then I'm just gonna take a little bit of Loctite here. This is the gel. Just enough of a drop to cover this up. And then I'll flip this around again. Same thing on this side. Give me a little bit of gel on that right in the center. I'm going to drop this eye right on that dot, and then I'm going to use my scissors. Just kind of open the tips up just a little bit. Rest it on your thumb, which is rest your hand on the vise, and then you have your thumb right here, and then you just press onto that. That keeps you from getting a lot of the glue on your finger. There we go. Once that starts to dry a little bit, I just take on opposite sides and I just push these together, and what happens now is that glue winds up meeting in the middle where that material wasn't before. So you have the glue affixed to the eyes and then on both sides. So that stuff's pretty well locked in there, and it's a shame because I'm gonna have to keep this one and fish it because I can't sell one that has blood on it. That's a shame how that works out. Alright, but that wraps up the Rainbow Riffle using the dubbing brush. Eventually, what I plan on doing is a couple of videos on how I build the brushes, how I go about, placing materials, what materials I use for the brush, so on and so forth, and then getting a video of those out. We'll see when I get some time to sit down and dedicate to those. But if you guys have any questions or comments, as always, leave them with me. I'll get back to you, but thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next fly.